Welcome to the online Public Information Center for the Municipal Class Environmental Assessment Study for Regional Road 87 Reconstruction, including Main Street, Locke Street, and Lakeport Road between Verdun Avenue and Regional Road 42 or Ontario Street in the City of St. Catharines. The Niagara region is conducting a municipal class environmental assessment, or Class EA, to identify the needs and opportunities for improvements along Regional Road 87, including Main Street, Locke Street, and Lakeport Road, between Verdun Avenue and Regional Road 42 in the City of St. Catharines. Regional Road 87 is a major roadway in the City of St. Catharines and provides access to and from historic Port Dalhousie. In its current condition, Regional Road 87 has a number of operational and capacity deficiencies related to existing conditions and development activity along the study area. These deficiencies are coupled with numerous other key issues, including active transportation connectivity, on-street parking, public transit facilities, accessibility, and drainage. These deficiencies and issues will be reviewed and addressed through the provision of an improved roadway cross-section. The purpose of this online public information center is to present the study process and approach taken, a summary of the public comments received from the first public information center held in May 2019, developed alternative concepts, summary of the evaluation process, the identification of the preferred solutions, and next steps in the Class EA process. We invite you to share your comments and questions about the information presented at this online public information center by completing an online comment form or registering for our live Q&A event, or by contacting the project team members identified on the next steps display board at the end of this presentation. The Municipal Class Environmental Assessment Planning and Design process is used by municipalities to ensure that the requirements of the Environmental Assessment Act are met when undertaking capital works projects. The Regional Road 87 Reconstruction Class EA is being carried out as a Schedule B undertaking, following phases 1, 2, and 5 as presented in the flowchart. We are currently nearing the end of phase 2, Alternative Solutions, and will be completing the Class Environmental Assessment Study through the preparation of a project file report and notice of study completion following this online public information center. In May of 2019, we held our first public information center to introduce the study to the public and to collect information regarding existing issues and opportunities for the study area. At the event, we provided comment sheets for attendees to provide their input. Also included on the comment sheet were 6 key considerations that we asked people to rank in terms of most critical to the study area. The 6 key considerations and their ranking include: number 1, traffic calming measures; number 2, improved pedestrian access and facilities; number 3, active transportation facilities; number 4, streetscaping features; number 5, on-street parking; and number 6, retaining and improving heritage features. For the purpose of development, evaluation, and planning of road improvement solutions, Regional Road 87 has been divided into 3 segments, each with distinct characteristics. Segment 1 is Main Street between Verdun Avenue and Locke Street. Segment 2 is Locke Street between Main Street and Lakeport Road. And segment 3 is Lakeport Road between Locke Street and Ontario Street. Alternative solutions that have been developed have considered components of the region's transportation master plan, including active transportation and complete streets. Additional considerations include transit requirements, roadway widening, safety and operational improvements, and heritage requirements. 5 alternatives for Main Street, or Segment 1, were developed keeping cyclist connectivity in mind, especially with consideration for the waterfront trail in close proximity to the study area. Currently, Main Street has a 20-meter wide right-of-way, on-street parking on the south side from Verdun to Locke Street, primarily residential from Verdun to Ann and Simcoe, with a mix of residential and commercial to Locke Street. Alternative 1 is the do-nothing alternative. Alternative 2 includes bike lanes on both sides of the street to Ann Street. Alternative 3 provides shared use lanes along Main Street. Alternative 4 provides bike lanes for only eastbound riders. And Alternative 5 provides bike lanes along in the entire stretch of Main Street. The do-nothing alternative is a requirement for every Class EA study and is used as a baseline when evaluating the various alternatives developed. The do-nothing alternative for Main Street segment will maintain the existing conditions as is, including wide travel lanes with non-delineated on-street parking, mature trees, wide grass boulevards, and narrow sidewalks. Alternative 2 would include bike lanes on both sides of Main Street between Verdun Avenue and Ann Street. These bike lanes would tie into the existing bike lanes west of Verdun Avenue and would terminate at the intersection of Ann Street, at which point cyclists would be directed to the waterfront trail. Key considerations of this alternative include narrow vehicular travel lanes, the removal of on-street parking between Verdun Avenue and Ann Street, the retention of on-street parking between Ann Street and Locke Street, which would be formalized with the inclusion of mountable curb and/or pavement markings, the retention of mature trees and grass boulevards, and the improvement of pedestrian facilities, including sidewalks and inclusion of pedestrian crossings. The figure shown is a summary of the active transportation facilities, both existing and proposed, associated with Alternative 2. Alternative 3 includes shared use lanes along Main Street between Verdun Avenue and Locke Street. Key considerations of this alternative include wider travel lanes to allow for cyclists and vehicular traffic to share the road. Improved wayfinding signage within and adjacent to the study area will be included to encourage cyclists to use the waterfront trail adjacent to the study area, providing better separation between the vehicular volumes experienced along Main Street. On-street parking will be retained between Verdun Avenue and Locke Street and will be properly delineated with mountable curb and pavement markings. Grass boulevards and mature trees will be retained, and improved pedestrian facilities, including sidewalks and pedestrian crossings, will be incorporated. The figures shown are the active transportation facilities, both existing and proposed, associated with Alternative 3. Alternative 4 will include eastbound bike lanes only along Main Street between Verdun Avenue and Brock Street. Cyclists traveling eastbound would follow Main Street and then be directed to Brock Street, Canal Street, and exit onto the active transportation facilities provided along Lakeport Road. Cyclists traveling westbound into Port Dalhousie would travel along Lakeport Road and then the waterfront trail. Key considerations of this alternative include narrow vehicular travel lanes, the retention of on-street parking between Verdun Avenue and Locke Street, which will be properly delineated with mountable curb and pavement markings, the retention of some mature trees and grass boulevards, and an improvement to pedestrian facilities, including sidewalks and a pedestrian crossing. The figures shown are the active transportation facilities, both existing and proposed, associated with Alternative 4. Alternative 5 will include bike lanes on both sides of Main Street between Verdun Avenue and Locke Street. Key considerations of this alternative include narrow vehicular travel lanes, bicycle lanes on both sides of Main Street, and the retention of on-street parking between Verdun and Locke Street, which will be formalized with the inclusion of mountable curb and/or pavement markings. Pedestrian facilities will be improved, including sidewalks and pedestrian crossings. However, mature trees and grass boulevards will be reduced and/or eliminated due to the impact of the widened road platform. The figures shown are the active transportation facilities, both existing and proposed, associated with alternative number 5. As part of the Class EA process, the developed alternatives are evaluated against a set of criteria to determine the preferred solution for the study area. The criteria that were used to evaluate the alternatives for Regional Road 87 include transportation, natural environment, technical, socioeconomic, and financial criteria as discussed here. Shown here is the evaluation matrix for the 5 alternatives of Main Street. Each alternative was evaluated against the 5 main criteria and numerous sub-criteria identified. Each alternative was given a score of 1 through 5 for each criteria, 1 representing least preferred or most negative impact, and 5 being the most preferred or having the least amount of impact. Alternative 3, shared use lanes on Main Street, received the highest score of 80 and has been identified as the preferred solution for Main Street. Locke Street is within the commercial core of the Port Dalhousie district. It has a 20-meter right-of-way and serves primarily commercial land use. It has 2 travel lanes, provides on-street parking on both sides of the street, and has a mix of furnishing, pedestrian, and unofficial marketing zones. It does not have any active transportation facilities. 7 alternatives were identified for Locke Street, or segment 2 of the study area. Alternative 1 is do nothing. Alternative 2 has narrow lanes and on-street parking. Alternative 3 provides bike lanes on Locke Street. Alternative 4 converts Locke Street to a flexible use area. Alternative 5 provides on-street parking on one side only. Alternative 6 removes all on-street parking. And alternative 7 removes all on-street parking with a signalized intersection. Similar to segment 1, alternative 1, do nothing, was also identified for segment 2, or Locke Street. This alternative serves as a benchmark to evaluate the various alternatives that are developed for Locke Street. In this alternative, Locke Street will remain in its as-is condition with 2 travel lanes, on-street parking, and a mix of furnishing and pedestrian zones. The intersection of Main Street and Locke Street maintains a 4-way stop control, while the intersection of Locke Street and Lakeport will be controlled with the existing intersection pedestrian signal, or IPS. Shown here is a plan of the existing conditions of segment 2, or Locke Street, between Main Street and Lakeport Road. Alternative 2 includes narrow lanes and on-street parking along Locke Street. Key considerations for this alternative include narrow travel lanes to reduce travel speeds, formalized on-street parking with the inclusion of mountable curbs and/or pavement markings, and better delineated furnishing and pedestrian zones. No active transportation facilities will be included with this alternative along Locke Street. The 4-way stop-controlled intersection at Main Street and Locke Street will be maintained, with the east leg of the intersection between Locke Street and Lakeside Park being converted to a 2-way roadway to promote access to future development. The existing IPS at the intersection of Lakeport Road and Locke Street will also be maintained. Shown here is the plan associated with alternative 2 for Locke Street. Alternative 3 includes bike lanes on both sides of Locke Street. Key considerations of this alternative include 2 narrow vehicle travel lanes, formalized on-street parking on one side of the roadway only, inclusion of bicycle lanes on both sides of the roadway, and better delineated furnishing and pedestrian zones. The 4-way stop-controlled intersection at Locke and Main Street will be maintained with the conversion of the east leg to 2-way roadway, and the existing IPS at Lakeport and Locke will also be maintained. Shown here is the plan associated with Alternative 3 for Locke Street. Alternative 4 converts Locke Street to a flexible use area. This flexible use area can be closed to vehicular traffic and allow ample space for pedestrian and cyclists, furnishing zone, and a marketing zone for adjacent businesses. The regional road would be realigned to follow Main Street along Lakeside Park and Lakeport Road. Key considerations of this alternative include the increased ability for streetscaping and landscaping elements along Locke Street, pedestrian crossing facilities at Lakeport Road, Lakeside Park, and Main Street, and the removal of the 4-way stop control at Locke and Main Street, providing a free flow traffic condition along Regional Road 87. Shown here is the plan associated with Alternative 4 converting Locke Street to the flexible use area. The realigned Regional Road 87 is shown, along with the 3 proposed pedestrian crossing locations. The existing stairs at the northeast corner of Locke and Main will be removed, and the existing retaining wall reconstructed to suit the new roadway geometrics. Land transfer between the region and the city will occur for the flexible use option, with the city taking over ownership of Locke Street between Main Street and Lakeport Road, thereby allowing them to determine how the flexible use area will operate, whether permanently closed to vehicular traffic or as a hybrid with vehicular traffic being allowed during off-peak or winter periods. Numerous municipalities throughout Canada have adopted the concept of a flexible use roadway. Shown here is Argyle Street in Halifax, which is close to vehicular traffic to allow for free flow pedestrian access and ample patio and marketing zones. At off-peak times, Argyle Street is open to low volume local traffic. Alternative 5 includes on-street parking on one side of Locke Street only. Key considerations of this alternative include 2 narrow travel lanes to promote reduced travel speeds, formalized on-street parking on one side of the roadway, including mountable curb and/or pavement markings, and ample space for furnishing zone, pedestrian zone, and marketing zones behind the curb. No active transportation facilities will be included along Locke Street with this alternative, and the 4-way stop-controlled intersection at Locke and Main Street and the IPS at Locke Street and Lakeport Road will be maintained. Shown here is the plan associated with Alternative 5 with on-street parking provided on one side of Locke Street only. Alternative 6 includes the removal of on-street parking on Locke Street. With the removal of on-street parking, there is now ample area to provide bicycle facilities on both sides of the roadway, as well as better delineated furnishing, pedestrian, and marketing zones behind the curb. With this alternative, the 4-way stop control at Locke and Main will be maintained, as well as the existing IPS at Lakeport and Locke. Shown here is the plan associated with Alternative 6 of removing on-street parking along Locke Street. Alternative 7 includes the removal of on-street parking along Locke Street and the converting of the intersection of Locke Street and Main Street to a signalized intersection. Key considerations of this alternative include the inclusion of a northbound left turn lane on Locke Street, as well as a dedicated right turn lane on Main Street. Ample area will be provided for furnishing, pedestrian, and marketing zones behind the curb. Shown here is a plan associated with Alternative 7, removing on-street parking on Locke Street and converting Locke Street and Main Street intersection to a signalized intersection. Shown here is the evaluation matrix for the 7 alternatives for Locke Street. Each alternative was evaluated against the 5 criteria and numerous sub-criteria identified. Similar to the Main Street evaluation, each alternative was scored with a value of 1 through 5, 1 representing least preferred or most negatively impactful, and 5 being the most preferred or having the least amount of impact. Alternative 4, converting Locke Street to a flexible use area, received the highest score of 77 and has been identified as the preferred solution for Locke Street. Lakeport Road, or Segment 3 of our study area, serves a mix of residential and commercial land use from Locke Street to Ontario Street. It has a 26-meter wide right-of-way, with the exception of a small portion between Michigan Avenue and Avalon Place, which is 20 meters wide. It has 2 travel lanes and provides on-street bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. 4 alternatives were identified for Lakeport Road, considering various active transportation facilities that could be provided. Alternative 1 was do nothing. Alternative 2 included a separate cycle track. Alternative 3 included a multi-use path, and Alternative 4 included elevated bike lanes. Alternative 1, do nothing, will maintain the existing conditions of Lakeport Road between Locke Street and Ontario Street. This alternative will serve as the benchmark alternative by which other alternatives will be evaluated against. Alternative 2 is the inclusion of a separate cycle track along Lakeport Road. The cycle track would consist of bicycle lanes along with a ripple strip median that separates cyclists from vehicular traffic. Pedestrian facilities in the form of sidewalks on both sides of the roadway would also be provided. Alternative 3 is the inclusion of multi-use paths along Lakeport Road. 3-meter wide asphalt multi-use paths would be placed on either side of Lakeport Road, providing for separation between cyclists and pedestrians with vehicular traffic. The multi-use paths would tie into existing trail and multi-use path infrastructure adjacent to the study area. Alternative 4 is the inclusion of elevated bike lanes along Lakeport Road. These elevated bike lanes would be located behind the curb to provide separation between cyclists and vehicular traffic. They are also separated from the sidewalks, which provide additional separation between cyclists and pedestrians. Shown here is the evaluation matrix of the 4 alternatives for Lakeport Road. Each alternative was evaluated against the 5 criteria and numerous sub-criteria identified. Alternatives were evaluated on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the least preferred or having the most impact, and 5 being the most preferred or having the least amount of impact. Alternative 3, multi-use path along Lakeport Road, received the highest score of 78 and is identified as the preferred solution for Lakeport Road. With all study alternatives identified and evaluated, the preferred solution for the study area includes shared use lanes along Main Street for Segment 1, converting Locke Street into a flexible use area for Segment 2, and including multi-use path along Lakeport Road for Segment 3. Shown here is the plan associated with the preferred solution for Segment 1, including shared use lanes along Main Street, formalized on-street parking along the south side of the roadway, and improved pedestrian facilities, including sidewalks and pedestrian crossings. The existing speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour will be maintained for the preferred solution. As identified as part of the preferred solution for Segment 1, formalized on-street parking will be provided along the south side of the roadway, including mountable curb and/or pavement markings, as identified in the picture provided. This delineated on-street parking from the vehicle travel lanes will help reduce travel speeds along Main Street, as well as reduce the occurrences of illegal parking. End block bump outs will also be provided, which will help further delineate on-street parking, reduce the occurrence of illegal parking, provide for easier pedestrian crossing of Main Street, as well as provide opportunities for enhanced streetscaping and landscaping. A formalized pedestrian crossing is also proposed as part of the preferred solution for Segment 1. The proposed location of this pedestrian crossing is at Ann Street and Main Street. However, during detailed design, the exact location and type of pedestrian crossing will be confirmed. Also included as part of the preferred solution for Segment 1 are marketing zones. These marketing zones would occur adjacent to the commercial properties between Canal Street and Locke Street, and would allow businesses the opportunity to provide small patios and/or areas to display merchandise. Shown here is the plan associated with the preferred solution for Segment 2, converting Locke Street to a flexible use area. Converting Locke Street to a flexible use area could mean closing the roadway to vehicular traffic during peak times and allowing the area to function as a pedestrian mall, providing ample marketing space for businesses to provide patios and display merchandise. During off-peak times, the road could be open to local vehicular traffic accessing the businesses along Locke Street. Regional Road 87 would be rerouted along Main Street, Lakeside Park, and Lakeport Road. Sidewalks would be provided within and along the study area, as well as 3 proposed pedestrian crossing facilities as identified in the plan provided. The exact location and type of these pedestrian crossings will be confirmed during detailed design. Canal Street is proposed to be maintained as a one-way roadway with stop-controlled access at the intersection of Locke and Lakeport Road. The existing stairs at the northeast corner of Locke Street and Main Street will be removed, and the existing retaining wall will be reconstructed to suit the new road geometrics. The existing speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour will be maintained along Regional Road 87, with the exception of cautionary 30 kilometer an hour speed advisories as shown, to slow traffic down as they round the road bends and approach the heavily pedestrian areas of Hogan's Alley and Lakeside Park. Shown here is the plan of the preferred solution for Segment 3 Lakeport Road, which includes 3-meter wide asphalt multi-use paths along both sides of the roadway. These multi-use paths will tie into the existing trail and pathway systems adjacent to the study area. It is also proposed that dedicated left turn lanes are provided at the entrance to the condo developments and the commercial plaza just south of the intersection of Lakeport Road and Locke Street. The existing 50 kilometer per hour speed limit will be maintained along Lakeport Road for the preferred solution. Shown here is the plan associated with the preferred solution for Segment 3 Lakeport Road, between Michigan Avenue and Ontario Street. 3-meter wide asphalt multi-use paths will be provided on either side of the roadway and will tie into the existing trail and pathway systems adjacent to the study area. The 50 km/h speed limit will be maintained for the preferred solution. Shown here is a summary of the active transportation network surrounding the study area based on the preferred solutions identified. Shown here is a summary of the proposed parking within the Port Dalhousie Commercial Core and surrounding area based on the preferred solutions identified. As part of the Class EA process, proponents are required to identify and assess potential impacts and mitigation measures of the preferred solutions. Potential impacts associated with construction of the preferred solutions for Regional Road 87 are identified, along with proposed mitigation measures that will be undertaken by the region and the successful contractor during construction. In addition to the short-term construction impacts identified on the previous page, potential long-term impacts have been identified along with proposed mitigation measures for the study area. Once the preferred solution is confirmed and the Class EA study is finalized, the region will transition to detailed design of the preferred solutions. Initial issues identified to be carried forward and addressed through the detailed design process have been summarized. Based on feedback from the community and stakeholders, additional issues may be added. Issues that will be addressed during detailed design of the preferred solutions include construction staging review and recommendation, including phasing of works and detour routes, develop detailed design of roadworks, including landscaping and streetscaping, signage and lighting, develop detailed design of linear infrastructure upgrades, including storm drainage modifications and water main replacement, develop wayfinding strategy and incorporate necessary signage into detailed design, confirm transit stop locations along project area, based on construction phasing, determine anticipated construction schedule and level of impact to surrounding community, coordinate design requirements with regulatory agencies and obtain all necessary approvals and permits, relocation of utilities that are in conflict with proposed works, and develop a communication plan and strategy to communicate project details with the local community and businesses during design and construction. Thank you for taking the time to review the material provided through this online public information center. Next steps moving forward in the Class EA process include integrating any feedback and comments we received through this public engagement session, confirm the preferred solutions identified, document the Class EA process in a project file report, and provide the project file report for a 30-day public review. There are numerous ways in which you can get involved in order to submit questions, comments, or feedback to the study team. Those include completing an online comment sheet provided on the Niagara Region's project website, registering and attending the virtual question and answer session scheduled for April 28, 2021, or contacting a member of the project team to provide comments and questions. The comment period will be open until May 7th, 2021. Please visit the project website at the address identified to review study material and access the online comment sheet. Thank you.